With this movie's release, it pretty much tops off 2023's World War II trilogy. And what I mean by that is, of course, earlier this year, there was The Boy and the Bomb, and then just recently, we were met with The Boy and the Lizard, and now we're here with The Boy and the Heron. Because of course, as always, Miyazaki always has to have the last laugh. Hi y'all. I'm Bayfond. And yeah, the title isn't clickbait. I really am struggling to say that I actually enjoy this movie. And I think that's kind of surprising because Miyazaki came out of retirement to make this movie. Not unlike those times he did before, but I mean, come on. So you'd be expecting this movie to be some sort of masterpiece, right? I mean, Miyazaki's the kind of guy that's gonna humiliate his own kids because he doesn't think that their stuff is up to par with his. To be honest, I think that guy's a little bit of a sociopath. There's that, and also the fact that he hates anime in general, kind of, sort of. But I digress, because there's a lot of things that you can definitely say you love about this movie. When it comes to visuals, I don't think I've seen a prettier Ghibli film. And I'm talking about objectively, not stylistically or anything like that. Just in the way the characters move and the way that the actions are presented. It's so very fluid, and it chooses its own very distinct style and how to portray this kid going through the motions of this really chaotic period in Japan's time. That's something that you see very evidently in the first minutes of the movie while he's rushing to the hospital. Visually, it's just stunning to look at. There are beautiful set pieces in this that make you go, wow. The visuals in Mahito going through this tunnel are powerful. It's almost like Mahito's going through time itself. I honestly didn't expect to see something like that in a Ghibli art style, because that kind of might be something more fitting in like sci-fi or a completely different kind of story. But then again, it still has its charm in its old classic Ghibli-isms. I mean, in making older women small and more creature-like than human, and its cute little characters that can just be little chibi figures that you buy on the street someday. It's got all the classic hallmarks that you can expect a Ghibli movie to have. And on top of all of this, it's got one of the most beautiful soundtracks that I've heard in a while. The music swells in this wondrous way when Mahito's traveling inside of this otherworldly realm that he finds himself in. I would say a big chunk of my emotional reaction to this movie came because of those musical cues. They knew exactly when to play them to make me go, oh, something is going down. And again, it's something that I really want to love, but it's really kind of hard to. My biggest grievance about this entire movie is its structure and its story. Things that I never thought a Ghibli movie would really be lacking. I mean, in this department, Miyazaki definitely made a movie that would make his son proud. The story is, in a lack of better words, abrupt in every sense of the word. From its character introductions to their interactions with each other to the ending of the actual movie, where it just ends on a single sentence and then credits start to roll. A lot of things don't really feel like they mesh well or that it's all really interconnected. It doesn't really make all too much sense sometimes. And here's the thing. I don't know if that's because I made the mistake in going in to watch this movie dubbed, because this is the first time I've really done so when it comes to an anime movie. I never really ever choose to go and see a movie, an anime movie or a Japanese movie in any other language besides Japanese. But here I saw the star-studded cast. I mean, Willem Dafoe's in this. Robert Pattinson is the goddamn Heron. Of course I needed to see this movie in English. But I don't know if that really hindered my experience, because there really seemed like there was something missing in the translation. There seems like I was missing something at every single turn. In the beginning of the movie, you have pretty high expectations of what you're getting yourself into because they plot everything really well. You understand that there's drama here, and you understand that there's some pretty high tensions in terms of this family dynamic. I mean, I get it. As a kid, it would be pretty weird to find your aunt one day become your mom. And in one scene, Mahito looks over his new home and sees this bird come down, and they go, oh, that's the classic heron that's just always here. And after this, Mahito just kind of has this relationship with the heron before even talking to it or really even interacting with it in any meaningful way. His first line of dialogue to it is, you shouldn't be here. Why? What's the reasoning behind it? I don't know why, but that kind of made me feel a little bit like, wow, is there something here that's kind of different? But aside from that, that's the least of our worries here. Things are set up inside of this world that Mahito's great-granduncle made, and they're really not paid off. There's these ideas of these characters that are kind of these like little blobs that eat, and then once they get full enough, they fly into the sky and they're born as newborn babies. And there's this drama that's built up around these creatures that have to eat them to sustain themselves, and it makes you think, wow, there's really big stakes here. But when it comes to it, It almost seems like nothing matters because at the end, the entire world's destroyed and this concept is kind of thrown out the window. What happened to these things that are gonna turn into newborn babies? Do they even matter in the first place? Or are they just there as just kind of an idea that's just floating around? And also, there's some pretty complex scenes here because when the pelicans come back and one of them is dying in front of Mahito, we basically get our world turned around because we know what the greater good would be, having these newborn babies come into the world. But then again, these pelicans are dying. This is all they know and this is all they can do. We shouldn't hate them because this is their nature. This is the only thing that's keeping them afloat. They're just trying to survive. And then there's nothing else on top of that. Really intriguing ideas just kind of pushed to the side. There's no repercussions to any of this or guilt that's held. It's just this entire world that just falls apart. And there's no excuse that this world's imaginary or that it doesn't really matter because, well, we've seen it actually interact with the real world in very meaningful ways. Mahito's mother got trapped in there for a whole year and then came out forgetting all of her memories. And every time that we see a creature cross the border from these worlds, they turn into something else. So we know that all of the things that are happening here impact the other real world. Then there's the fact that Mahito and his mother interact inside of this world. They interact like normal. He doesn't tell her anything. And at the very end of the movie, once he's escaping, he basically bombards her with all of this information and she goes, I know. There was nothing hinting this and at no point because she had really been told what was going on. So kind of just falls flat, this entire goodbye that they have. But if we're talking about worse interpersonal connections that characters have, it's Mahito and his new mother because you understand the jankiness that there is at the start because of course it's a kid and his new mom. They gotta interact with each other. They gotta learn how to live and coexist. But here's the thing. Once he goes into the new world to try and find her, what's with this hate that she has towards him? Is this to try and get him out of this room that she's in? Because it feels more genuine. I mean, he almost gets pretty badly hurt because of it. And just like that, his switch is flipped and he starts calling this person mother without any real development as to why he would make this decision. It's odd. These are all very, very odd creative decisions. And then the fact that this all ends like that at the drop of a hat when he says, after 2 years, we moved back to Tokyo and it's all kind of gone. The only thing that I can really do to describe this entire thing is that this is kind of more of a steady stream of consciousness that's shown through us through the screen. Because what this story is actually trying to be is an autobiographical tale about Miyazaki's own childhood. All of the events that happened to Mahito in terms of what happened in the real world with the hospital burning, his mother dying, his father having to work this job at a factory, all of these things happened. And Miyazaki's trying to tell us how it felt in that very complex, very chaotic time. But I just kind of think that in the way that he's doing it, it doesn't leave any room for the audience to really get attached or to really care about anything that's going on. Again, I really, really, really wanted to love this movie, but I just felt that there wasn't anything that was really reeling me in aside from what I was seeing with my eyes, the visuals of everything. And again, I could say that it could be a translation issue, but again, I'm not gonna put the blame on any of the voice actors because Robert Pattinson, again, absolutely fantastic. If anything, he was probably the best role, the best voice in this entire movie. That guy's got range. We should put him in a lot more animated projects or in a lot more live action projects where he actually gets to be completely different characters, more flamboyant, more colorful. He would do fantastic work in those roles. Christian Bale as the dad was a little bit more weird at times. I mean, he was trying this like transatlantic accent that was kind of weird, maybe not always hitting, but you know, it was working itself out at the end. And Mahito, the guy that we followed the entire time, he was also pretty good. I can't say any of these voices did a bad job here. They did phenomenal work as expected from a Ghibli movie. And I guess that's the thing. I think we're already conditioned to expect something from a Ghibli film. We're expected to see a simple story that goes from point A to point B with a lot of fun things in the middle. A gorgeous world with characters that are a lot larger than life and a story that has a lot of value and a lot of meaning to it. And I don't know, I feel like the message of this movie is pretty hard to try and like reach out and get. You could say it's about a child trying to find his own way in the world, but it doesn't really go full circle. It's not believable enough to make you think that Mahito at the end of the movie is a completely different person than he was at the beginning. That response just isn't there. And I love the concept of this world that they built here because it's not one that's just like, oh, could it be real? Could it not be real? They're not teasing you. They're showing you that it is real and it was constructed before. It's got a lot of elements from things like Spirited Away, but then again, in my head the entire time I was thinking, this is kind of like a male version of Alice in Wonderland, with instead of it being a Cheshire cat, it's a heron voiced by Robert Pattinson. There was a lot of potential here and a lot of interesting choices that they could have made, but they don't focus on anything nearly as long as they should. They don't go in depth about how this world was actually created. They say that a while back something fell from the sky, and then from those things, Mahito's great-granduncle went in and built this world. We see the stones that he's been using to really try and keep this world together, but it doesn't get expanded upon, and we don't get an explanation on anything. I do think that it's nice that this movie is a whole accumulation of a bunch of other Ghibli works all put together. I mean, the fact that Mahito meets his mom is very reminiscent of Marnie. This world, again, has a lot of Spirited Away vibes, and I think it shares some tonal similarities to Miyazaki's other World War II movie. But then again, it kind of served to the movie's detriment because it reminded me that the other movies did all of these things better. But now, Miyazaki's come back to Ghibli for good this time. I think he's gonna be working on movies until the day he dies. And I'm willing to say that out of his entire repertoire, this is just one movie that just didn't hit. Doesn't mean his next ones won't. We'll just have to really see what happens. And with that, those were my thoughts on The Boy and the Heron. What did you think about this movie? Do you think that I'm just completely dead wrong and that this is Miyazaki's magnum opus? Please, let me know down in the comments below. And, as always, I was Bayfond. I'll see you guys next time, and peace.